Almost. Major. Holy fucking shit, this is major! So being that we're talking about Van Wilder, a movie that I've pretty much exclusively seen on cable, on Comedy Central, and on The Secret Stash Midnight Hour, what are some movies that whenever you think of them, you think about how you watch them first on cable or mostly on cable?
I remember we had, so I'm old enough to remember, watching movies on VHS. We had, tapes that you could, put into our TV and, hit the record button and, they'd record movies. And we had, tapes of Ace Ventura, Pet Detective, which I saw, multiple times. Good Burger, Dude, Where's My Car? I think we had True Lies on VHS.
Yes.
And I think that was maybe on TBS, because I don't think they had the swearing, but they still had, a lot of violence. I remember, after I watched that, my parents, said, you're not allowed to watch that movie anymore. And I was like, okay. And the Cats, we also had a taped version of Cats and Dogs, which was on, the Movie Network in Canada, I think. And that, had, I think the tape started with, the last 10 seconds of a preview for Heartbreakers, and then ended with and then after Cats and Dogs is over, it had the first 20 minutes of Miss Congeniality.
Oh,
so,
hell
where
yeah!
She's busting through the coffee line, or
right?
whatever, with her siren. Yeah, so that's what I remember.
Just skip Cats and Dogs and just watch that 10 minutes of Miss Congeniality.
Yeah, I remember when Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back was coming out. They played Clerks on FX for I think it was at 11 o'clock or whatnot. That was the first time I watched Clerks. So it was an FX one. Wow. And I remember I recorded it and pretty much just went to sleep. And then I didn't know until I was watching it one day and I just let it roll that they played Mallrats afterwards. So that was the first time I watched that as well. It's a 3 a.m. screening of Mallrats. I'm trying to think, because I definitely had a bunch of
Wait,
tapes.
Kevin, I have a nerdy question. Was it TVMA, Clerks?
Yes. I mean, it was on FX, but it still didn't... They weren't cool like Comedy Central, where it was after midnight, you can just say fuck and shit and all that.
Yeah.
So I think all of that was... I don't think they replaced words. I think they just blinked it out. So it wasn't that bad. Same with Mallrats.
I didn't watch a ton of stuff on cable, but... I remember the first time I watched Billy Madison was on cable.
Oh, yeah.
I remember buying it on DVD and then being like, this is way more vulgar than I remember it being. Also, did they ever do weird stuff with cable movies? I know I'm going to sound like I'm crazy, but because they edited certain things out of Billy Madison, there's a weird scene where the entire cast is playing kickball at one point, and I'm just that is not in the movie, but I swear it exists. I know it sounds insane,
right?
But they have weird shit like that. The other one, the most notable one for me in terms of movies I watched on cable that had a huge impact on me was Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom was always on AMC or something.
Oh, wow.
But it was edited, and I saw it 3 times on AMC, and then my sister and I rented the VHS, and the infamous heart ripping scene. It's basically on TV. It's just Mola Ram putting his hand on the guy's chest, cuts to him screaming, and then the heart's in his hand. And I remember we rented it on VHS, and it just shows him fully diving in with a fist, and we were just what the fuck? So this movie that I loved and had seen multiple times then started to scare the shit out of me. I even think they cut out lowering the guys into the pit too. They're not on fire for as long. I'm sure there's other stuff, but I remember that one being I will never watch anything on cable again. Because I can't have this fucking me up.
Yeah.
I did have HBO a lot as a kid, so but they always played I always watched the weirdest shit on HBO or Showtime. I watched The Forgotten with Julie all the time for some reason.
How do you watch movies that the title is saying what that movie is? It is fucking Forgotten.
Yeah.
I know. It is kind of one of those when you think, I liked it as a kid, but you think back on it, you're kind of wow, that's insane that movie was number 1 at the box office at one point in the 2000s, because that movie's kind of bonkers and also deeply stupid.
It's funny you mentioned the Indiana Jones thing, because I think we had Raiders of the Lost Ark tape off of TV, and that's with the advent of VHS, you can rewind stuff. And I remember when I was a kid, my brother was watching the scene where all their faces melt or whatever, and we were oh my gosh. But then immediately afterwards we're let's watch that again. Rewind.
Oh my god.
Oh, yeah.
Play it back.
Yeah, what's funny is they didn't edit that, because I've watched Raiders of the Lost Ark on cable too. They don't edit any of that shit out. And then Temple of Doom, even like in 2003 or whenever I watched it, they were like, no, that we can't, even though it's a PG movie, although that is obviously the movie that and Gremlins are the reason PG-13 exists, I'd say justifiably so. I also love Temple of Doom as a problematic fave because it is so clearly like George Lucas and Steven Spielberg going through a really horrible divorce for both of them are just so angry and mean. Like there's stuff in that movie I can't defend, but like in terms of pure spectacle, Jesus, I still love that movie.
That opening, that's like the closest. Well, I have not seen West Side Story, but the closest to a musical I would say he's done before.
Oh yeah,
it's unbelievable. Like, that is a great set piece.
They start off in Shanghai, and then they get in a car driven by Short Round, and they get on a plane, and then the pilots are in on it, so they parachute out, and then they have to get like a lifeboat or something, and they just like inflate it in the air, go down a cliff. It's insane. That's the first 15 minutes of that movie. It's wild.
It's unbelievable. Yeah.
And I remember, like, that was also a movie I remember everyone to this day still criticizes Kate Capshaw, and a friend of mine wrote a Letterboxd review that was like, look, if I was just doing, like, a nightclub job in Shanghai and I ended up with that shit and just was in a random Indian city where I didn't know where I was and people were tearing people's hearts out, I would be fucking livid. She was fine.
I'm just looking up Comedy Central Secret Stash and just finding posts from like 2004 on the internet. There's a board on DVDtalk.com. When did basic cable start allowing X-rated material to be on my TV? Yeah, okay. But looks like they were playing Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, Queens of Comedy, Richard Pryor live in concert, Scary Movie 2, stuff like that. I will definitely put the little bumper they had before every movie on here.
The two that I can especially, like, Kevin, full disclosure, we've been talking about Secret Stash.
That is
back and forth for a while, because that was that's burned into my brain.
Yes.
And the two that I think of that, like, well, one, it does somewhat have a cult around it. Okay, but the first is Slackers.
Oh,
with Jason
wow.
Schwartzman.
Oh, wow.
This with Jason Schwartzman with a hair doll, and the whole premise is that he's into someone. He's like kind of a nerd archetype, but also extremely creepy. Like creepiness, like cranked to the maximum. And then he blackmails this other kid.
Devon Sawa? Is it Devon Sawa?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh my god, it is Devon Sawa. So there's that one, and yeah, I'm talking too much about Slackers, but there's a hair doll that's disgusting. And then the other one is The Sweetest Thing.
Oh, yes!
All the time.
Rules.
I have never seen it, but I want to.
It's crazy.
It's great.
I don't think it works, but it is crazy that
Did
it
they
exists.
play the unrated version with the penis song? Do you remember that?
The penis song, is that in
That is the only moment of that movie I've seen, probably because I saw it on cable channel flipping and was like, okay.
You know what? I don't think they played the penis song, or if they did, it was edited. I've actually seen that multiple other times because two of my good high school friends love that movie. But then, okay, the one last one, which was super obnoxious, is the first time I watched The Matrix, was edited on AMC, and it was right around Christmas. Mm-hmm. And my mom and dad were putting up the Christmas tree in the room. I don't know why I was watching The Matrix in the same room as them, but anyway. There were
worse R-rated movies to watch with your parents at that age. I watched The Matrix with my dad. Although I think I've mentioned on this podcast that was my first R-rated movie because I threw a fit. So because Reloaded was coming out and all my friends were seeing it, and I just like was the absolute worst.
Meltdown.
Huge temper tantrum. I'm pretty sure I made my mom cry. I was anyway.
No. Oh, goodness.
Well, I didn't quite do that, but it was, my parents did not like violence, and I just remember they weren't even watching it. They like vaguely heard of it. Yeah, it was weird because it was like a phenomenon, but it was something they didn't really know how violent it was going to be. And I just remember it's the scene, I think it's where Tank is hit with the machine gun. And he's in the chair and like convulsing because of the bullets. And I just remember my dad being like, "What is this?" Like, he was so angry. And I'm like, well, fuck, I guess I gotta change the channel now.
I had a moment like that where I was watching Man on Fire on HBO, and my dad was like, "What are you watching?" And it's the moment where Denzel blows a guy's arm off with a shotgun, and he just went, "Ugh," and walked out of the room.
Dad, come back. He's going to put C4 up a guy's ass.
With the cigarette lighter. Okay, yeah, that movie kind of rolls. I kind of,
it's great. What kind of commercials do they air at like 3 a.m. though? Like, do they just have like
Kevin
phone sex commercials? I can tell you that. That's like a
phone sex.
Like, I'll be watching like Seinfeld on like some like New York channel or whatever, and then it'll be like saying like, "Hey, are you getting lonely?" And like it'll be like someone like Quest Chat or something. That's like what it's called, and I'm like, "Oh, okay, yeah."
So they're basically implying like that you are single and lonely and depressed whenever you're watching that.
Warning, this commercial may contain stuff inappropriate for children. And then you just hear the steel drums, and then it's Girls Gone Wild. Yes.
Yeah. Consistently.
It's like, I've been told I've watched like 1 or 2 Lifetime movies, but like apparently on Lifetime on Friday night, if you're watching a movie there, it's like weight loss commercials, cat food commercials, like personal massage commercials,
birth control, and
it's like
it's the most stereotypical. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like, you are at home on a Friday night, you clearly hate yourself, have a cat, and are not getting laid. Like, that's basically what they're saying. Like,
Hello, welcome to Almost Major, where we discuss the many major studios and the films they release. We are still on Artisan, and we are talking about 2 classic films today. My name is Kevin Tudor, and I'm here with Bryden Doyle.
Hey. And
Charlie Nash.
Hello.
And we have a special guest, Mr. Michael Snydel. How are you?
Hi. I'm doing well. I'm doing well now that I'm done with these 2 movies. But thank you so much for having me on.
Of course.
I'm looking forward to talking about them. Hopefully it'll be better than watching them.
It would be a real shame if this podcast fell apart after we watched these movies and then just happened to watch them for no reason at all.
Just get on the pod. It's like a 10-minute pod where it's just me and it's just like, "Hi, so we attempted to record an episode. Our guest started sobbing. We felt really bad. I had to remind everybody that Kal Penn's name of this is Taj Mahal, which got groans all around. So we just decided to skip it this week." Yeah.
My publicist told you not to mention Mother. You just didn't listen.
My goodness. We're here to talk about National Lampoon's Van Wilder from 2002. Strangely enough, this didn't go to TIFF or Cannes, so it was released in the U.S. on April 5th, 2002. With a budget of $5 million, opening weekend, it made $7.3 million at 2,022 theaters. It came in at number 6. Top 5 that weekend is Panic Room, High Crimes, Ice Age, The Rookie, and Blade 2. Need to watch High Crimes. That seems like some garbage I need to watch.
It's not good.
My heart goes
boring.
out to any dates who were just standing at the theater and one of them convinced the other not to see Panic Room so they could go see Van Wilder.
What would be worse? That would be like, "Oh, come on. I want to see the fucking Quaid Rookie movie. I got to see that. Come on, man." Yeah. Van Wilder ended up with $21.3 million domestically and overall $39.2 million, which I think makes it, the Artisan's 4th most profitable movie, or not profitable, but the most they made. It's directed by Walt Becker, his first movie, but also this year he has a movie called Buying the Cow. He also did Wild Hogs in 2007. Written by Brent Goldberg and David Wagner, who also wrote together The Girl Next Door, not the horror movie. Do you guys want to have some fun? Just go look at Brent Goldberg's profile picture on IMDb. Starring Ryan Reynolds as Van Wilder. Everybody knows him. I'm not gonna. Prior to this, Tara Reid as Gwen Pearson. Prior to this, she's in American Pie, Urban Legend. After this, My Boss's Daughter, and Alone in the Dark. And also, I don't know, 17 Sharknado movies, I believe. Yeah. But also Josie and the Pussycats, which she's great in. Kal Penn as Taj Mahal. Prior to this, mostly just TV guest roles. After this, of course, Harold and Kumar movies. He was on House MD. Worked for President Obama. And of course, the sequel, Van Wilder, The Rise of Taj.
Is this Tara Reid's follow-up to American Pie, by the way?
This is 2002, so this is about 3 years after. I think this came out the same year as American Pie 2.
I think American Pie 2 is 01.
Wow. That's right.
It's 01.
Yeah.
Okay. But, yeah, after American Pie 2, which I think she's, like, barely a cameo in American Pie 2, if I remember correctly. Bryden canonically loves Alone in the Dark. He had a fun time with that. I remember only watching the first 10 minutes of that when it came out, and I couldn't do it. And I say that as somebody who owned House of the Dead on DVD at the time and thought it was a cool time. So, trivia. Many of the story elements in Van Wilder come from a Rolling Stone article called The Undergraduate about the college career of comedian Bert Kreischer, which was optioned by director and producer Oliver Stone. Weird. That comedian, he's the guy who just, I don't know anything about him. All I know is he just goes on stage and he's like, I have a beard and I have no shirt on. And I'm like, cool. Ryan Reynolds only saw a rough cut of the film before it came out. He hasn't seen the film since. After the release of the film, Ryan Reynolds said a group of male college students were excited to approach him and were surprised he was not a party guy, which he did not like being associated with. During a November 2021 interview, Kal Penn recalled that he was initially hesitant to play the role of Taj Mahal. He would have to act with a strong stereotypical accent he didn't have, or for which he was trained by a white dialect coach. But he was also acknowledged that as a young actor earlier in his career, he would never be able to book less stereotypical roles without a few credits on his resume. He was also motivated to take the role when he learned that the other actor under consideration was white and would be doing brownface. Powell.
I mean, you talk about this, like how he didn't want to, he seems so hesitant. I mean, you shared with us the special features of Van Wilder, and it's like a movie, the show is called like Movie Junkie, was spelled with a Y.
Hell yeah.
Where like they're interviewing the cast on like couches and everything, like the interviewer's like staying next to them, and Kal Penn just seems like he's in hell when he's being interviewed. Like he's like can't remember the name of his character's home village, and he says like, it's been a while since we filmed it and everything. And then he's asked about his Indian accent. He says, obviously put on. Is that and then like the interviewer says like, it's obviously put on. Is that strange? And he says, it was strange because I don't speak that way. And then the interviewer says that like later he's like talking about like how Indian actors like often like they'll get like 2 lines in movies, or it'll be like the most stereotypical like stuff like, oh, can I get you a Slurpee and stuff. And then like the interviewer literally asks him to say the line in the voice, and he just looks miserable. And there's like a part 2 where he is asked about how important it is to him to get laid, because that's like his character's like big objective. And then like there's just like a long pause, and then he turns to the camera and is like, hi mom. And yeah, he just like, so you can tell, I mean, like I'm thinking the discomfort in the interview shows that like he did not have fun making this movie. Or although I don't know, maybe, I mean he came back for the sequel. But yeah.
He's gay. Can you imagine? If I was forced to make this movie, Jesus Christ, I would have been like, oh God. Weird side tangent about
please.
He was in a movie called The Namesake in 2006, and at my job we keep a list of like mispronounced film titles, so when people come up and they want to buy tickets to something and they say the name wrong, we just write it down. And I asked my boss, who's worked in movie theaters for like, decades at this point, I was like, what's the worst one you've ever gotten? And she said it was for the movie called The Namesake with Kal Penn. Apparently someone approached her and said, one for the Namasaki? And
that's
she
a
just
Mira
like
Nair film, isn't it?
Yes,
it's a good film. From what I remember. I did not call it the Namasaki when I saw it, so I must have mispronounced it.
I'm gonna pass out. Wow.
And she was just like, even I couldn't hide my utter bafflement. So yeah.
The
Anyway.
Namasaki. To finish up this trivia fact, Penn was ultimately able to influence a few changes in the character. For example, he convinced the filmmaker that it doesn't make sense for an exchange student in America to continue wearing traditional Indian clothing. Yeah. There is I read up a little bit about National Lampoon, but I feel like there's not really overarching structure to all of their movies, honestly. So I did find a thing about it says there is considerable ambiguity about what constitutes a National Lampoon film, because after the success of Animal House, a large number of movies were subsequently made that had National Lampoon as part of the title, and in some of the cases use actors that have been associated with other ones. Many of these so-called National Lampoon movies were unrelated projects, because during most of the 1980s and 90s, the name National Lampoon could simply be licensed on a one-time basis by any company for a fee. There are also cases where a film originally released outside the U.S. under one title had National Lampoon added to the title for the U.S. release. For the example, the 2004 Canadian release Going the Distance was only branded a National Lampoon film in the American theatrical and DVD releases. So...
Is that the one with Drew Barrymore?
No,
that's Nanette Burstein. That one's
one.
actually kind of good. I like that movie, but
Oh.
yeah, and you said, Kevin, with like the actors like associated with National Lampoon. I think like the one thing you have in like this movie is Tim Matheson from Animal House plays Ryan Reynolds' dad. Like that has to be like, an intentional nod.
And you have Paul Gleason, who John Hughes was a big part of the National Lampoon,
of course.
Right.
A writer roster.
Yeah, I mean, Vacation. That was like a story that he wrote for the magazine, and then that became like a movie.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't realize Vacation was a Hughes thing. Okay.
It's just funny that this movie is like so puerile, but like Walt Becker's subsequent films are mostly like pretty tame. I mean, Wild Hogs is like people talk about how that movie is like deeply homophobic and everything, but they're like all his movies since then have been like PG or PG-13. Like Clifford the Big Red Dog is Walt Becker. And,
yeah.
It's very strange to think about that's the career path that he's taken. And in terms of like college comedies, he went back to that well because he did a short-lived college comedy called Glory Days that was on TBS for like a season, and it got very bad reviews. But it's, I guess, and like I don't know if that was like a passion project for him, that like co-creating it, but yeah.
It reminds me of the two guys that made American Pie. Then after that, they just made like About a Boy and like nice comedy dramas.
Paul Weitz, right?
And
Chris
Weitz.
And the Golden Compass as well.
Right. Yeah.
The Golden Compass. I saw that on fucking opening weekend. Forgot it existed.
Meet the guy.
Who, me? Van Wilder.
Van Wilder.
GLAD to meet you.
Who puts the cool back into school.
Great work, Van. Thanks.
This summer,
I'm doing a human interest piece on you.
I'd love for your piece to be on me.
if you want to get wild, get wilder.
Everybody wants to have a party thrown by Van Wilder, the party liaison.
Give me some sugar.
Initial thoughts. I believe we're going to have a lot of heated debate. Is this a classic? No, it's not, etc. Charlie, I believe you said this is one of your favorite films of all time, so please state your case.
Go to hell.
You relate so much to the things in this movie. I mean, we all do.
Yeah, I mean, I knew this was, one of those movies that, like, everyone in high school who, watched on Comedy Central, as we talked about, I had friends in high school who liked it. I just never saw the appeal and avoided it. And yeah, it is exactly as awful as I thought it would be. I mean, like, I'm looking at my notes right now, and it's genuinely just like what do I even say? Because my notes are essentially stuff like dog balls, deaf basketball coach, it's no bong, it's for my schlong. And I'm just like, what am I supposed to... I watched this. I went to a rep screening of Malcolm X on 35mm, which fucking masterpiece if you haven't seen it. But that movie is 3 hours and like 28 minutes long or something.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, I got home and I was like, fuck, I really need to do, like, I have no laundry. I genuinely need to stay up and do laundry. And I was like, what should I do? And I was like, fuck it, I'll scratch this off for the pod.
Yeah.
And I just sat through Malcolm X, and instead of basking in the glow of that incredible work of art, I decided to watch Van Wilder, and it was more interminable than any fucking it's exactly as obviously terrible as we're just gonna bring it up. I mean, yeah, it's homophobic, it's misogynistic, it's racist, it's transphobic, it's Ryan Reynolds. This was his starting point. The guy has had so many chances. Why? He's the smarmiest, scuzziest, like, fucking... I've never understood his appeal. I've never understood why people find him appealing. He's so in love with the smell of his own farts. He's just... His overall persona is just, like, everything that just repels me in a male lead actor. I mean, like... I guess I thought he was fine and buried because I'd also bury him alive, but that's pretty much it. Like, I mean, I can't really think of much... Like, I just found it... You know, it's just like, you know, I avoided this movie because I was in the closet in high school, and then I watched it as a 31-year-old openly gay man, and was like, yep, this is like, if I saw this when I was in high school, I might not have gone to college. It's that fucking terrible. And yeah, I don't know. I don't even know. Like, I'm trying to find a way to spin this to be fun, because I feel like I'm just like, just. I felt dead inside watching this thing. I'll shut up for now.
Hell yeah. Compared to the movie I watched after this, which is Boat Trip, this movie is... No, it's still pretty bad.
I will take boat. I mean, like, if they're on a battlefield standing with rifles and I had to stand behind one of them, I'd stand in the middle. But if I had to defend one of them, I'd go with Boat Trip over this. But
okay,
You'll
well...
happily die on one of those hills.
Okay, I'll be the person. I don't care about Ryan Reynolds. When I was younger, I kind of liked him. Now I'm just like, whatever. If he wasn't in this movie, it would be so much worse, because I do think he is, I mean, it's schmarmy, but it's also charming. He has charisma of some sort. Like, it's still a bad movie, but I feel like he is doing something. Like, if he wasn't in it, this would just be another one of the fucking direct-to-video National Lampoon movies, like Gold Diggers with Chris Owen, who's at the beginning of this movie. But I mean, yeah, it's just it's like objectively bad, but did I laugh a few times? Yeah, but is it because I laughed because I've heard a joke from it like 90 times and I can't even separate it? Like, of course I'm going to laugh at the nerd saying, how do you put a price on dignity? How do you put a price on punani? Like, sorry, it's terrible, but I gotta laugh. I'm truly surprised, like, it even went to theaters, kind of. Like, I'm sure I've not seen really any other National Lampoon movies besides, like, the vacation movies, which complete difference. But, like, I think this is, like, it's got to be, like, one of the last theatrical ones, and I feel like all the ones around them were definitely direct-to-video, so it feels like, I don't know how this one is that much different other than, you know, it has, like, credible-ish people in it.
And needle drops, too, that are, like, of the time. Like it has, like, Jimmy Eat World.
It has Michelle Branch!
Yeah.
Yes!
American Hi-Fi, the band everyone remembers.
Look, I had fond memories of those Jimmy Eat World songs in this movie. It just made me sad. Also, yeah, Kevin, I just want to throw it real quick. I'm not really... I've seen Christmas Vacation and I've seen Animal House. Never really understood why those were considered such classics, but that's another thing I want to mention is I'm not a big National Lampoon person at all. So.
Yeah, but like the trivia I was saying, like, if you tried to tie Christmas Vacation to Van Wilder, it's impossible. Like,
yeah, no, Animal House and Christmas Vacation are real movies that, like,
right.
I mean, Animal House, I totally understand why that was a hit, especially in the 70s. It's just like, it just never was my type of humor. So, like,
right. I do love Christmas Vacation, but what was I saying? Yeah, movie bad. Really, strangely, like, the only good thing about it is Ryan Reynolds, even though I don't think he's that good in it. But, like, Cal Penn, unfortunately, it's not his fault, but he's doing a bad role. Tara Reid is, I think, literally asleep, like Wesley Snipes in Blade Trinity when they had to like CGI his eyes. Because
Wait, did they really?
I don't think it's in the movie, but there was a deleted scene where he got on set and he was just like, "I'm not opening my eyes," and so they had to CGI him opening his eyes.
And Blade Trinity, which has Ryan Reynolds in it, is there maybe a correlation between this? Like, makes this...
No, yeah.
My favorite scene of Blade Trinity is when Ryan Reynolds gets kicked in the face.
Oh, and then he's like, and then like Triple H is just like, "When did I say you could talk about my dick?" or something like that. I'm like, what?
No, when did you see my dick? While he's holding
right.
a dog, and then he just fucking...
Parker Posey is in that movie, unfortunately.
Yes. Yeah.
She talked about that. She talked about that in her book, and she was just like, "Yeah, it was fun. Why not?" She was like, apparently it was like going way into it. She was just like, "Well, if I was a vampire, I would be thinking like this." And then I think, isn't David S. Goyer? Isn't that who did it?
Yeah.
He was just like, just jump and shoot. Like, you're fine. Yeah. But yeah, the movie's bad. I kind of have fond-ish memories of it, but it's just like bad nostalgia because I'm just like, remember when I was like 12 and I was like, I understand none of this, but I'm gonna laugh because that's what adults think is funny. Yeah, when I watched American Pie off FX in like second grade, and I was just like, "This is hilarious." I don't understand.
I mean, that is what this movie's legacy is, right? Like nobody who was 17 went to go see this. It impacted like 12-year-olds of our, like people like in our generation who were like, "This is what an R-rated comedy is." Sorry to keep interrupting, but that's
no. Yeah, imagine somebody
relevant.
being like 28 years old and being like, "Oh shit, I gotta go watch Van Wilder," and not because I held a gun to my host and I was like, "You're gonna fucking watch Van Wilder."
Although I will say my roommate was deployed when he was in the military, and he did have to watch this multiple times, like because there was only one TV, and he was just like, I
knew the military was bad.
Yeah, he was like, I have PTSD from this movie. So
basic training is not anything on the fucking dog scene. Yeah. I don't really have anything to say. Bryden?
Yeah, I'd never seen this before. I thought it was very bad. I'm a little more generous towards Ryan Reynolds as a screen presence. I think he can be used. One thing, this is kind of like one of his big starring roles, but before this, he was on that show, Two Guys and a Girl, which originally at one point was called Two Guys, a Girl, and a Pizza Place.
Two Guys, a Girl, and a Pizza Place.
Yeah. I saw episodes of it because it played on like TV when I was a kid, like in reruns. It's not very good. Like kind of playing like a similarly fast talking sort of like slacker dude who like lives with his roommate and like is friends with like his upstairs neighbor. I think he can be used pretty interestingly when like if like he's working with like a director who will like maybe like try to subvert his like sort of like fast talking smarmy persona. Like I think he's really good in Mississippi Grind. I think he's really good in The Captive, where he's kind of tamping down like his more like fast talking instincts. The Captive is kind of like a janky movie because like Adam McGoyan, that's like him in trashy thriller mode, and it has like a really overbearing score, but yeah.
Adam McGoyan is one of my favorite filmmakers, and I'm too scared to watch that for the stink on it from most people, and because of him. Sorry to interrupt.
It's a completely different register than like what he's doing in Van Wilder, which is interesting. He's at least there was like a very brief period of time where he was like pushing himself in new directions, and then Deadpool comes out. And like before this, he'd been like romantic leading man and like The Proposal and Definitely Maybe and everything like
Just that. Friends.
Yeah, that was kind of like his mode for a little bit. And
Just Friends. I saw that in theaters.
Mm-hmm. The Proposal, I kind of
same.
I've seen that movie multiple times.
The Proposal's
I've seen it so many times, so like I kind of can't separate it from like a critical thinking mindset. I haven't seen
the fact that movie, I forget who directed it.
Anne Fletcher, who did Step Up.
Anne Fletcher, that's right. So it made like $350 million, so they went back and they were like, let's do a sequel, and they were just like, we're kind of in the business of making like $1 billion movies, so you can fuck off. So like a rom-com made $350 million, and they were just like, yeah, but it's not enough. I don't know. Bryden?
Yeah, so like Reynolds, I think can be, and like it's kind of interesting to see like the different phases of his like career as like a leading man, where he is like kind of this sort of frat boy humor, then a romantic lead. Then he's kind of like in the woods for a little bit because he has like those big, like Green Lantern, I feel like is kind of like a big blot on his career where like they're trying to make him a superhero like the first time around. Although he does play Deadpool like in a small part in X-Men Origins Wolverine, and he's in Blade Trinity. But yeah, it's kind of interesting like after Green Lantern, just like a 5-year period where he is doing these kind of like off the beaten path movies and everything. Like The Voices is another movie where he's kind of like a charming like boy next door type, and but he's like
The
a serial
Nines.
killer.
Yeah.
I kind of like
The Voices is actually good.
Yeah, that's an interesting.
He's
use of
actually
it.
not bad. At
That's Satrapi.
It is.
right after Persepolis, or not. Maybe not right.
It's
after.
like several years after. It's like kind of like a belated follow-up, but that's kind of an interesting movie. And then Deadpool comes out, and I feel like that's just all he does now. It's like either playing that character or like doing that kind of like sort of wise ass persona,
mugging.
Yeah, and he's not working with interesting directors like, you know, whether it's like indie filmmakers like Anna Boden and Ryan Fleck or auteurs like Adam McGowan. He's working with like, I don't know who the fuck directed Free Guy was like Sean Levy. Ross and Marshall Thurber did like Red Notice. I have not seen these movies, but they are not distinctive directors. Because I've seen their other movies. It's a little bit of a bummer to think about. You know, there was like a path he could have taken in his career, and he hasn't followed it on it. But taking it back to Van Wilder, I'll try to wrap up my thoughts really quickly. But I think this movie's it's all the things that you said that you were all saying it was. It's got racism, homophobia, transphobia, also like kind of like a weird trend in like a lot of 2000s comedies of like portraying older women as like sexually voracious to the point of like they're like assaulting men,
rapists.
They're rapists. Yeah,
and making jokes out of like males being traumatized by that. They really go back to that well a lot. And I don't even think the filmmaking here is so choppy and everything. Like the gags don't even feel like they build up enough momentum and everything. Like cutting between like, you know, different plot lines. There's like scene like at a roller rink where like Taj is like being spun around really quickly, and then like he goes flying, and then like a second after he crashes, it just cuts to a frat party. It's like it doesn't even let the gags breathe in like a way that works like visually. I think we were talking too about how like the problem. It's interesting we brought up that this movie's covered by the people who wrote The Girl Next Door, which I recently rewatched, and that movie kind of has like a similar problem where it is like you almost wish those movies like Van Wilder and The Girl Next Door didn't have a conscience. Like they were willing to kind of go like just more reprehensible and everything. Because like the problem with those movies is they try to turn like sort of saccharine in like the last little bit where it's like, like in Van Wilder, it's like, oh, this guy, he actually cares about charity and he's good for the school. And also he deserves to get the girl. And it doesn't work with like, you know, him being like an obnoxious prankster whose pranks... I mean, the dog semen thing, that's like a sex crime, I feel like. There's like a College Humor video, I think, like talking about like most like frat comedy gags are just sex crimes. And I think they
That's another gag where it happens and it never goes back to that. It's just like a skit.
Even though he takes like photographs and everything, like you could like he would like if people like actually prosecuted for it, be like, yeah, you're going to jail. Like this is a bad thing that you did.
The antagonist doesn't even mention it later. Yeah, you're right. Like
Van Wilder mentions it and he goes, I don't know what you're talking about, because he doesn't think he knows about it or something like that.
Yeah, and it's just, I mean, the movie's idea of humor is like just lowest common denominator and everything. I mean, it's like the movie, like as it goes on, like goes through like, you know, all right, we'll have semen gags, vomit gags, and then, you know, I don't know, what's like the logical conclusion? Someone shits in the trash can? Like, all right, that's like the idea of the humor, and it's just like it doesn't really have any respect for its audience, and yeah, I just found this really unpleasant.
I made a note of what that was called that she dumped in his thing, and it was called colon blow.
Yes.
Colon blow, yeah.
Colon blow.
You know how you buy a whole gallon of that. Yeah.
That was one moment where I laughed, not because it was a clever joke, but just because it was like, they don't even do that shit anymore, where it was just like, there used to just be jokes about people shitting their pants all the time, but it would always be with laxatives that were just like that, or like brown
laxative
or
laxatives that are just called, oh god, I shit myself.
But yeah, that's like a sight gag, and like it comes together. That's what it sounds like.
But,
yeah.
But even
or not another teen movie.
Yeah. But even like the colon blow thing, like that's like I looked it up. That's like a Saturday Night Live gag with Phil Hartman, where it's like, you know, colon blow or something. It's like a fake commercial.
Wow.
So like even that one gag that you laugh at, it's like taken from something else. It's
no, I didn't even. Yeah, now I can't even give the movie credit
now.
for being, yeah.
Anyways, I'm sorry I dominated the conversation for so long. Michael, I want to hear your thoughts about this, because you were interested in coming on to talk about this.
Yeah, and I kept interrupting you, Brad, and so I don't know what you're apologizing for. But...
Yeah, please, we gotta get to Michael, because we're, it looks like we're 3 hours into this pod. Yeah. No, I'm kidding.
Oh yeah, so, okay, so like, it's interesting because I have weirdly seen a lot of these like super raunchy gay panic like failed comedies. Like I know we already mentioned Secret Stash at the beginning of this, but like again, like Slackers, Sorority Boys, oh no.
The first three American Pie movies.
Yeah, the first three American Pie movies. I have seen at least 2 of the American Pie spin-offs. Like,
Yep, same.
Have just Naked Mile.
Naked Mile and Bandcamp.
Yep, and God.
Book of Love and Beta House. I was off the boat at that point. Yeah.
All these other movies I could have seen that time. Anyway, so I have seen a lot of these, and I will say their value to me now is twofold. So one is I have been an out by cis man for about 10 years, I would say. But I was definitely closeted when I was seeing these films, and I wasn't experiencing a lot of the same pain that other queer friends did. So in high school especially, one of my absolute best friends was a closeted gay man, and he really, really hated some of the movies that we ended up going to. Like, I can remember how much he hated Reno 911 Miami.
Oh my gosh.
He hated Knocked Up and Superbad.
Oh.
I still think Judd Apatow was like a cut above with some of this stuff, but
yes.
Van Wilder, I gotta be careful because somehow I'm gonna make it sound like Boat Trip is a more interesting movie than Van Wilder. But Van Wilder is, in fact, so recycled and such an assembly line shock product.
Hell yeah.
That it makes the sloppiness of Boat Trip feel distinctive. Like, it's not only that Van Wilder is on autopilot for every single joke. Like, you can guess every sight gag. It's almost like it's almost like at a certain point, I wish they would have went further into Feldberg's seltzer territory, because I have been going into a rabbit hole lately and trying to look into some of these gay panic movies, and still one of the most interesting ones, weirdly, is Scary Movie, which takes its gay jokes, like, they're incredibly homophobic and offensive, but it commits. Like, there are 2 gags in there, one involving a clown and one involving foreplay with a football uniform, that each conservatively have to be 2 to 4 minutes. They just keep going and going. And like, it's not even that like Van Wilder doesn't give things to breathe, because yeah, I don't want to see any fucking more of the dog scene. But Van Wilder is like the epitome of something that feels disingenuous to me. Like something that feels like a studio comedy that is not only hitting a checklist of things that it thinks are edgy. It thinks are edgy, but also trying to earn emotional climaxes. Like literally in the fact that it's a triumphant romantic moment with Tara Reid and Ryan Reynolds at the end. There is then a scene where he needs to pass 6 classes? Finals?
Yeah.
And that is cut in between a scene we already mentioned of this shithead guy whose name is Richard D.I.K. Bag, by the way. Where he shits in a garbage can in front of people he's trying to impress for a job. Or for med school recommend. I don't know. Who gives a shit? Anyway.
His name's Dick Bag. It's pretty funny. It's really funny, actually. Yes.
Anyway, this is so bad as to make Boat Trip almost look distinctive. There are a lot of really bad versions of gay panic movies, and I've somehow seen a lot of them, but I guess the thing that I'll bring up now, because I'm going to bring it up later, is this is not only the least common denominator, but it's the smuggest imaginable version of reactions to it. The way that it's presented, like, it is hilarious that after a terrible sight gag with an Asian woman who is tailoring his pants, there is a montage barely 10 minutes into the movie that hits every bad racist, transphobic, sexist, homophobic, fat shaming. It is in a minute. It is everything.
It almost feels like they were like, let's just get it out of the way so we don't have to do it for the rest. Because, like, that feels so out of place, kind of. Because the rest of it is not that bad as that scene is. Like, it's still bad, but I mean, it feels, once it gets into like the romance of it all, then it's just like Van Wilder and Tara Reid, just, you know. But yeah, like that, it honestly feels like they were just like, okay, we're gonna hit this beat, hit this, and then like, you know.
I remember I texted Kevin and Bryden right after that scene, Michael, and I texted, how the fuck am I only 16 minutes into this? Like, I was just like, wow, they've hit every target I've expected them to already. In fact, within that 45 seconds, it's just, and it is the laziness of it too. Like, not only, I mean, obviously it's offensive and mean-spirited and punching down, but there's not even thought to anything. Like
I don't like trauma, but they are also about, they, you know, see themselves as boundary pushers, and you know, they see those taboos as something to be like, you know, fuck you, we're stepping on them. But you know, I do think it is really in service of a sight gag that they care about. It's not like so perfunctory to feel like, why the fuck am I here? Like, there is such a way that this movie like detests its own audience that even as it's just like in shape and form like a very mediocre studio comedy, it's somehow more offensive to me that this was seen as the norm. And like the fact that I don't know, like, even I'll get into this with Boat Trip. God damn it. But me being my nerdy ass, like, looking under the microscope, I've been fascinated with watching clips of a lot of these early 2000 movies, and even like some of the like weird 2010 films that tried to bring back gay panic in a big way.
Gotta bring it back.
I mean, Get Hard was only 7 years ago.
Yes.
It's insane.
It's fucking, yeah, that's unbelievable. Sorry, I'm not trying to get you an explicit tag. It's been a bit since I've been on a podcast.
We already passed that.
We don't care.
All right.
We swear like sailors.
Fuck yeah, great.
Yeah, people are gonna click on Van Wilder, be like, all right, I want to hear their opinions, but they better not be no cursing.
Yeah, I want to listen to this while I take my daughter to daycare.
I watched this movie on TBS, so I expect the same language standards as TBS.
Now, honey,
TBS
listen to
knows
this.
comedy.
Van Wilder was a very good. Well, and TNT knows drama. Yeah.
Damn it. Yeah.
Let's get into the plot real quick.
Wait, I'm sorry. I just want to, for a second, I'm moving my spectacles. I'm taking them off and putting my monocle on. I guess it's the editing that I really think about a lot in terms of Boat Trip and Van Wilder. And it is literally in the opening minutes of Van Wilder, even before this stupid montage, there's a joke about how this person would rather die than be next to a person who doesn't have their pants on.
Hell yeah.
And you see the reactions in Van Wilder, the abject horror on the possibility of being confronted with anything other than some like dominant heteronormative narrative. And it's so sour and ugly, and Boat Trip's also ugly, but it really actually feels like, even if it's just not well directed, it felt different in not saying that same like rigor mortis look that is in so many of those comedies. And you know, it's not like just the early 2000s. You know, you see this throughout so many decades. There was that BuzzFeed list that went viral relatively recently, which is like 25 examples of transphobic, of like recent transphobia in movies. Mm-hmm. So it's not anything new, but I still, looking back at this time from a number of different lenses, and one where I was bi, so I wasn't thinking as much about what that invisibility and that marginalization meant. But now it feels all the more aggressive and like violently, like marginalizing in a way that I didn't see it at that time. So I think that's why I kind of wanted to talk about these things, to see how bad things were. It turns out they were bad.
Yeah, pretty bad. The fact that Van Wilder, his real name is Vance Wilder, is pretty weird. Sorry. Vance Wilder. Charlie, do you have something to say?
I guess, because I know you want to get into the plot, Kevin, so I'm trying to think of a way to sum this up as quickly as possible. It is funny, Michael, because I definitely was in the closet, and why I avoided certain things like this. I mean, this movie came out when I was like 10, so I didn't really know about it other than I wasn't allowed to see it, and then it became a Comedy Central hit. But I remember seeing something like I Now Pronounce You Chuck and Larry with a bunch of straight friends, and being like, watching them relish in that shit. And on top of that, the fact that
I watched that with my parents. I just wanted to say that briefly, Charlie. And they thought it was cute.
No, but that's the thing, is like everyone walked out of that movie like laughing at all the F slurs, and then at the end of the movie you're like, don't say that word, it's a bad word. It's like all of your jokes were that word. And I'll get off of Chuck and Larry, but like I just remember how much those things hurt me in the closet. So I think as a gay viewer watching this now with no attachment to it, I was just kind of like, I've gotten into a mindset where I'm like, this movie can't hurt me. And which is not to say it's not offensive, but I definitely think this would have like had horrible psychological damage to my own feelings of self-worth if I had seen it at the age that many people in our generation seem to have been. Yep. But I kind of watched it like expecting all of this to a point now where, which is not to say that like all of, because there's more than just homophobia, there's everything, as we've said, but I got to the point where I just felt so depressed watching this, where I'm just like, yeah, like this is exactly what I thought it would, and I've seen this so many times. I don't know if that's adding anything to the conversation. I just think it's interesting that, you coming out and admitting that you were in the closet but you were bi, now realizing like, just going back and seeing something from, because I've definitely done that with, I mean, God, I saw Ace Ventura countless times as a kid, and I'd never watch it again now. Like it's just fascinating to me how coming into this completely as a first timer and just being like, this is a big pile of shit I thought it would be, but with you and Kevin, it's interesting. I think the parallels that Bryden and I have in comparison to you and Kevin, who grew up, this was a part of your adolescence.
I have odd history with this movie,
but a lot of people do.
I don't like Van Wilder being a part of my history, but I guess.
Bad phrasing on my part. You have history with it. Is that better?
That makes it sound like I killed it. You're like, you have history with it. Yeah.
A history of violence? I don't
know. Yeah. Okay. For some reason, the plot of Van Wilder is really long for some reason. Yes. But I think a lot of it is probably just fluff. But Van Wilder is a confident and sardonic 7th-year senior at Coolidge College who is popular among most of the student body. With no ambition to graduate, Van spends most of his days driving around campus in his customized golf course. cart, posing nude for figure drawing classes and organizing soirees and fundraisers for his peers. Among his friends are his roommate and close confidant Hutch and his newly hired assistant Taj Mahal, a sexually repressed foreign exchange student from India. Upon learning that his son is still in school, Van's father arrives at Coolidge intent on bringing him home. When Van refuses, his father decides to sever Van's financial support. Faced with disenrollment due to unpaid tuition, Van seeks a payment extension from the registrar's
office?
I kind of had it. Yes. Dolores Haver. After Van has sex with her, Dolores hands him the paperwork for the extension.
She rapes him, I feel like we should say, because he's like very much not into it, and like it's like played as like the trauma is like a joke and everything, where like people are asking about it, and he's like staring with like 1,000-mile stare, and he's like, mail in my stuff, and like he's like his
mail it in!
His jumpy nature is like the joke and everything, because like this woman this woman who like is like licking her lips and everything, and it's like playing in some like awful stereotypes about like like men being like assaulted, like that kind of like, which is like a trope that like took a long time to be phased out. But then like also like the idea that like women who are not like maybe up to like the traditional beauty standards of like the young women who populate this movie and everything, the idea that they have sexual appetites is like inherently hilarious and everything. So like it's like doubly bad. But yeah.
I feel like that scene as well is like reflective of the next level of extreme that this movie goes to with like reaction shots. Like it is again like right after you can tell he's uncomfortable, a rape has just happened. Let's be clear. But like then it keeps going and holds on him as his face goes down, and then you have that trauma joke in the next scene. Like there are 3 different fucking reactions to the action we just saw. As if like look how unnatural this is. If you believe anything, I know that's extreme, but if you believe like this movie asserts, it's so confident about what it asserts about the world, and I think that's why it really rubbed my brain the wrong way.
Yeah. The sound effects too are also like very on the nose. Like when a girl takes off her bra, it will be like this, like the sound of like spittoons and everything, and it's like as if like saying like basically like the movie's reacting for you almost. Yeah.
Well, Animal House did have that, to be
sure.
Also, Ringmaster, come on.
Oh my gosh,
yeah. Oh, cuckoo.
What's the link between all of Artisans comedies? Yeah.
Sorry, I left the room for a moment, but I just want to make sure if we're talking about sound effects, are we talking about the half, barely like a third of a joke where he's like, "You're missing the party of the year," and there's just crickets. There's just cricket sound effects? Is that what we were talking about? Okay.
No. But sound effects in general, yes, because he's talking to Tara Reid and then it zooms out and there's like 4 people. Yeah.
Not as good as the ka-ching in Valentine, which I know has previously come up on episodes.
Yeah, I forgot about the crickets thing because like there's music playing in the background, cuts to a wide shot, crickets, the music is stopped, and then there's silence for a few moments, and then the song continues in the background. It's so sloppy the way they do that.
It's so sloppy. It's just point and shoot, like camera work and editing. Not that it is funny that we talk about this stuff too, because like I feel like with comedies, I mean, editing is as Bryden and Michael you brought up, editing is so important, and yet nobody talks about it. But like if you have like that amount of dead air or that type of sound effect, it's like you don't trust your audience, and B, it's just like people just. I mean, even today, I feel like it's depressing. I mean, like I I know this is gonna sound kind of weird, but like I watched that clip of Free Guy that was going around months ago, where it was just like every pop culture thing, and he pulls out a lightsaber, and it cuts back to someone watching it on a laptop, going, "That's a lightsaber!" Like it's just like it's that type of
thanks.
Like, yeah. But that's the thing where we haven't really moved on as a culture. Like maybe we've moved on past this type of humor in certain ways. I mean, again, like not fully. Hot Tub Time Machine 2 and Get Hard were not so long ago, but like even like just the way that mainstream comedies have to like hold people's hands into implying what is funny as if we're children.
Mm-hmm.
Like, well, Apatow's one of his biggest. I'm sorry, Charlie.
No. I'm done. Go for it.
I was just gonna say that it's funny you say that because I think that does intersect, not necessarily in content, but one of the biggest criticisms of Apatow, especially as it went on, was that his editing is too baggy. Like, that was what it started with, and then that became over and over the offender people talked about.
Gwen Pearson works for the school paper, and despite her talents for journalism, her articles do not generate interest from the student body.
It's no dark versus light beer.
Oh my god. Her editor, which is Tom Everett, American Werewolf, and Paris Scott, who is uncredited in this movie for some reason, her editor assigns her to get an unattainable human interest story on Van Wilder, as he normally refuses to do interviews for the paper. You're telling me this guy is just getting interviewed on whatever. After a couple of attempts to get money fast, Van is approached by Lambda Omega Mega fraternity, offering to pay him $1,000 to throw out a blowout party. Overhearing two of the Lambdas expressing their excitement over the party's success, Gwen writes a story crediting Van Wilder as the host of the party. Though Van hates the article at first, he realizes it could be a cash cow and that he needs to stay in school. Van eventually agrees to sit down with Gwen for a follow-up piece after losing a hockey bet to her.
Scored to
to a Jimmy Eat World song.
Bleed American.
Yeah.
Good song. Used badly
It's
here.
a good song. I like that fucking album
Right.
that Jimmy Eat World released in 2001.
But also, I think around this part, I'm about to introduce her boyfriend, but around this part, she's about to leave to go interview him, and Too Much Too Soon by Llama is playing, and that's the song you first hear in Swim Fan. I just had to point that out. I'm sorry.
Oh my god. All comes back to Swim Fan.
And
Take a drink.
and
Yes.
like the charming the romantic subplot with like Van and Gwen, like it's like, I mean, it's just like so blatantly creepy too, where like he keeps like saying like, oh yeah, like it's a date and everything. He keeps trying to turn like all their interviews into dates, and like he keeps pursuing her even though she's like, stop, I have a boyfriend and everything, like stop doing this. But then like she like of course
interviews
like,
are first dates, I think is what he
yes,
says.
exactly.
I wrote that down.
But then of course he
Well,
wears down her
she
defenses.
says it's an interview, and then it just stays on her for 10 seconds, and he just creeps back into the shot, and he goes, Gwen, all first dates are interviews.
Oh yeah.
And I was
Yeah,
like,
and then she goes to her editor and was like, "This guy is being weird and hitting on me." And I think he says like, "A good writer always gets their story done, no matter what." Which I'm just like, "What the fuck?"
Oh my
Yeah.
god. Oh, I forgot to mention that Eric Estrada shows up at the intro of the movie playing himself.
What?
I was just like, who are like the 15-year-olds going to see this movie when they bought a ticket to like fucking whatever
say
PG.
pay it forward.
No. Like a PG-13 movie
Rookie.
and sneaking into
The
the
Rookie.
yeah. They bought a ticket for the Rookie to sneak in, and they were just like, oh my god, it's the motherfucker from Chips. Like, who's that for? Gwen's boyfriend Richard Bagg is a pre-medical student and the president of his fraternity. As he learns of Gwen's work with Van and suspects a growing bond between them, he moves to sabotage their prospective romance. Van and Richard exchange escalating pranks, culminating in Van, Taj, and Hutch replacing the cream filling in a batch of pastries with canine semen from Van's dog.
Since we skipped over it, let's mention the part where he's invited over to Tara Reid's parents' house. And when she walks out of the room and comes back, it's almost turned into an orgy.
He somehow convinces Tara Reid's dad to do like a tequila shot off of her mom's breast. Like it's just like, wow, that was like really, I don't know how.
After he was flailing with a lot of bad jokes.
Honestly, that's like the part of the movie I related to the most, when he's like making all like the terrible cracks and like none of it is landing. He's just like just gasping, laughing. I'm thinking like, yeah, I wouldn't be charmed by this guy either. Like, he sucks.
I'd be like, who invited this guy?
But it is funny when Richard leaves and he just goes, if he's here, who's running hell? Like, I kind of like that. Though Gwen grows closer to Van, she assesses his transcripts from the admissions record office while doing background work on her piece, learning that Van has actively avoided graduating for the past 7 semesters. 7 semester? I feel like it was longer than that.
It's 7 years total.
Yeah, because he's a 7-year senior, so it wouldn't be 7 semesters, because that's like
14
a year
semesters.
and a half. Yeah. He stopped attending classes years ago, 18 units short of graduation. Angry that Gwen dug into such personal details, Van disassociates himself from Gwen and takes a contemplative look at...
While he's like angsty pop music is playing while he's like reflecting on.
It's Michelle Branch.
Yeah. There we
go.
Yeah.
He disassociates himself from Gwen and takes a contemplative look at his life. He's just like, just really sad, being like, maybe I shouldn't have put Dog Spunk in the fucking, yeah.
Well, yeah, and Paul Gleason too plays like one of the profs. I can't remember what the class is. Is it economics or something? But he says like, "Oh, Van, you were like my most brilliant student in like first year. Why did you like waste all your potential?" So you're supposed to think like Van is like this super smart guy.
He's a genius. He just doesn't. Yeah. He's like, I would go to college. I just don't feel like.
He's like a Good Will Hunting, perhaps. You could no,
right.
Bad comparison.
Yeah. But Yeah, my boy's wicked smart. Richard arranged to sabotage Van's latest party with Janine, a member of the sister sorority, by smuggling underage children in and getting them drunk, and then calling a campus police officer to the scene. As a result, Van is arrested for providing alcohol to minors and faces expulsion from Coolidge. A depressed Van prepares to leave Coolidge until Tosh inspires him to fight back against the charges. The student body pools its resources to defend Van against the charges before a university panel. While the law club invests time coaching Van to plead innocent to the charges, the rest of the student body works to generate support for Van. Having learned from his past mistakes and what Gwen has shown him, Van goes off book during the hearing. Though he did not intend for underage students to attend the party, he nonetheless considers himself responsible. He throws himself at the mercy of the court and asks that rather than expel him, they force him to graduate. He offers to complete blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
Well, anyways. Let's talk about this, because, like, this is the other thing. Like, I feel like this movie kind of follows this template, like, of a lot of college movies, like, sort of the slobs versus snobs sort of thing. But what kind of, like, undermines that whole, like, dynamic here is, like, Van is like super rich, like the frat guy and everything. Like the frat guy says like, how could she ever be with like this guy who's like, like a reject or whatever? But it's like his dad, Tim Matheson, is introduced like with like a whole entourage coming out with like a limo and like living in a mansion, and it's like saying so like this guy's like insanely privileged and a white guy, so like I don't like he's like expecting like, please show me mercy, like this white party guy and everything. It's like
and then, I think he needs like $30,000 for the month.
Yeah, but
like,
then if the movie's trying to get anything about this, the big heart-to-heart moment where it's like college matters comes from fucking Cal Penn, who he was an international student. We don't know what their class, his character's class is.
No, it's a foreign exchange student.
It's
not only international, it's foreign exchange.
Foreign exchange, and the main and it's all coded through like horrible thing, like just like things that I took notes of that I'm like just my blood is turning cold just as I'm reading them. But like, that is the like, not like I want this movie to be saccharine or sentimental or anything like that, but I guess nothing what you meant, I guess everything's just minuscule to you, including a promise to a wet behind the ears kid from India whose only dream was to bury his face in a beautiful woman's lotus patch. So like, oh, okay, college is worth all this money. He's rich, but Cal Penn is like, he gave him purpose. This like, I mean, you bring race into that, you bring in like the fact that racial stereotypes of like, I think at one point he says, you gave me a dream I only thought about of masturbating in my father's woodshed or something like that. So like any type of like commentary on his privilege and white cis classness is just like, it's all not like
filtered through exoticism and classist exoticism.
And he's like, what about me and everybody else you help? He's like, who you helped? There's that one guy who's apparently sick all the time, and all you do is just go, hey man, are you sick today? And he's just like, you've done so much for him. And it's like, what?
Yeah. And like, here's the thing is like, it's simultaneously gross. And what I got to is like, as I was watching that scene, I was like, yeah, of course, this was 2001. Like, why wouldn't this be in this movie? Like, that's kind of the thing that was depressing to me, is that I was like, both like, this is appalling, and also I'm feeling nothing because it's just what I expected. Like, it's that type of gross.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Where am I at? In retaliation for Richard's underhandedness, Gwen spikes Richard's ritual protein shake with a powerful laxative just prior to his taking the medical college admissions test.
Yeah, she's also pissed not just because he was messing with Van Wilder, but also because he had sex with the sorority sister who like is like doing all the dirty work for him.
Right.
And is that Brown Noser?
Yeah, who has like 9 t-shirts. It's like, I love dick.
Yeah,
I heart dick, got dick. Yeah,
I felt
like,
so bad for that character because she just like, I mean, the joke where like she finally like says like, I am so devoted to you and everything, like just like for some reason she's so devoted to helping this one frat guy. Then they have like this really debasing sex scene where she's like super excited about it and he's like just being like super mean to her and like his insults are like,
shut up.
Yeah, his insults are like putting the joke on her, and I felt like, and then she reveals it to Gwen, and like that's how like the colon blow thing happens. But I just felt I wanted to mention like I felt really bad for that character, and like not only does she gets like vomited on it like at least twice or something, like it's it's really.
I also felt bad for the actress because
totally.
the actress is probably like, maybe if I'm in this thing, I'll get better roles afterwards, and I don't. I feel bad that I'm not even remembering her name right now, but she's not anyone recognizable to me. Yeah.
She's one of 3 female characters with a name in this.
As Richard rushes to find a bathroom, he is intercepted, but he shits in a bucket, okay? Van uses the entire exam period for his last finals with Professor McDougal, which is Paul Gleason. Blah, 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 blah. He finishes. He was able to pass. McDougal notes that he had been so hard on him all those years because he believed Van was not living up to his potential. Gwen finishes her article on Van for the graduation issue, revealing Van's many contributions to the students and staff of Coolidge in the last 7 years. His superhuman accomplishment of a semester's worth of studying in just 6 days, and Richard's plot to have Van expelled. Richard is last seen reading the article in a restroom, his medical school dreams and reputation completely destroyed.
And still shitting, it seems, from like the colon blow effects.
Yeah, apparently that had a long-term effect. It ends with the university celebrates Van's graduation with a wild party held in his honor. Van's father appears, having read Gwen's article, admitting he was wrong, and expresses his pride in Van's success. Gwen then arrives, lovingly reuniting with Van. And
she's also in a bikini and not wearing underwear, like she says, like so, like
oh god,
now that she's offered she's sexualized herself, like it's like she's like like going to his level or something like that. I mean, like
the reward him for his
and
she also shames her ex for pre-ejaculation, which is like, you can't publish that. Like, I don't even care what universe
you can't publish any of that.
Yeah. Like, that's the thing where I'm like, well, I know that this doesn't take place in the real world, but like even in something like this, like come on.
It's also not a cover story.
yeah.
Sorry, I know that doesn't matter.
No, but sure.
No, but it's applicable.
And the other thing too, that like the other subplot is like because Taj wants to have sex super badly. He tries having sex with one of the girls on campus, but like he gets set on fire because like he's covered in body oil and like there's candles all over the place and he falls out a window. It's super stupid. But then like
into a swimming pool from a second story. Yeah,
like very convenient. Yeah.
But him jumping out of the window on fire, kind of funny.
Although, but again, like showing the low stakes of that movie, like apparently that's like where they're keeping the funds for Van's like tuition funds, and like it gets burnt up. Like,
yeah,
just like all right, guess we'll just throw another party and we'll be good. Like it's like they don't even care really about.
I forgot about the tuition funds being there.
Yeah, well,
right.
There's like a bill that they pull it, and like there's like a hole in it from like the burns, and it's like, oh man,
right.
It's like no, don't worry, we'll cover this or whatever. And then at the end of the movie with like the big party, where like Van is like celebrating his success, Taj, who had previously tried to hook up with a white girl, ends up with an Indian girl from and it's like, and I'm like thinking like days later, I'm thinking like, so like, is this like the movie like showing like this is the right decision? He needs to be with like his own people or anything versus like mixing with like a white girl. And I'm thinking like, is there like some kind of weird like racial thing going on here?
I don't. Yeah,
that's like a parallel to the earlier scene where the nerds led by Big Bang Theory / Annette
Simon Helberg
co-star Simon Helberg, and the one-liner is, they have really big medulla oblongata.
Yes.
I don't know how to say that part. Yeah, but that whole thing, I was like, oh boy, I'm depressed.
But final thoughts.
Sorry, Kevin, I got a little derailed.
No. I'm more so just like, what do I even say at this point of Van Wilder? It exists. I'm surprised it's on 4K. There was a tweet that I saw recently that was like, yes, it is on 4K. There's a tweet I saw recently that was just like, some movies should never be put out past DVD, but they said Donnie Darko, and I was like, no, Van Wilder should not be seen past DVD. Like,
Is this Shout? Is this Vinegar Syndrome? Severin?
No, Lionsgate. Lionsgate themselves put it out. It was like one of their first 4K movies. Yeah.
So certain films like Brian De Palma's Femme Fatale and Catherine Bigelow's Strange Days can't even get a Blu-ray release, but people were clamoring with Eternal Sunshine. Well, that's a whole. I mean, that was announced like so long ago.
It was announced so long. Yeah.
Right.
But there's not even plans. There were enough people clamoring. I'm assuming with lots of pots and pans outside of someone's window, just like
4K Wilder. 4K Wilder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Free Guy 4K.
Oh my god. Yeah. From the director of Cheaper by the Dozen. Anyways, Charlie, do you have any final thoughts on your new favorite comedy from 2002?
I'll be seeing it in my nightmares for years to come, or unless I block it out. But that's pretty much it.
Well, after you watch Van Wilder freshman year, it's going to be even worse. But
No. You got to go in order. You got to go.
My bad.
Razatage, then freshman year. Come on.
Well, freshman year's a prequel.
Well, we should have watched that first. Come on.
You already fucked up.
Yeah, damn.
Wait, I'm trying to think of people being like, so wait. I thought in freshman year it was established that Van actually, like debating the fucking...
They retconned it.
Y'all retconned the original. Y'all ruined my childhood. Yeah.
My final thoughts are heterosexuality is gross. That's all I have to say about that.
Thank you. That's fine. I understand. I can't watch this and be like, no, we have good things. We swear. And it's just like, no, we put our money behind this. It's fine.
I'd just like to point out that Kevin's background while we've been recording
is
we forgot glamorous shot of Aaron Paul in
a dress.
A very offensive, drag outfit.
It would actually be very funny if somehow Breaking Bad made was a prequel to Van Wilder, where after Jesse got out,
he doesn't have a name.
He just goes back to college and it's just so fucked up. Yeah, no, his name is Wasted. His name is Wasted Student or something, isn't it?
But I think it's just
later. I think it's just drunk asshole. I think that's what it is. Strangely, I think the footprint this movie has is if anybody is named Naomi, they always quote, "That's I moan backwards." That's pretty much all this movie has as a footprint, unfortunately. Or Van Wilder saying you shouldn't take life too seriously, you'll never get out alive. Being that I live in Oklahoma, I've probably seen that on a lot of people that I've graduated with Facebook pages. Anyways, Bryden, any final thoughts?
This is a movie I've seen, I guess. So, it's off like a checklist. I imagine there's like probably lists of like, college comedies you need to see. I mean, someone's probably published
best college comedy.
Yeah.
Best college comedy.
Yeah. I don't know. I just thought this was like totally insincere, unfunny, poorly edited. Like the little plot that exists has no stakes, so there's no momentum to it. So the whole thing, even though this movie's only like 90 minutes long, it feels pretty interminable. It's just like totally unremarkable. This is definitely one of the worst movies that we've covered for the miniseries of Artisan, I think, so far.
Okay, but what's worse, this or House of the Dead?
House of the Dead, I think, is worse.
Ringmaster.
Ringmaster 2 is
Ringmaster's worse.
Yeah, that movie is very hateful, but and has very little reason to exist.
Is it more interesting than this one?
I think the fact that I think the fact that there are some movies we covered, like Soul Survivors and Ringmaster, and even to a certain extent,
movies,
Blair Witch 2, the fact that they're so forgotten makes it easier for me to endure them. Where I'm like, no, this had a cultural impact. That is kind of what makes it more contemptible to me.
Okay, yeah,
I agree with you, Bryden. I think even. Like, I think I said last week when we did Book of Shadows, like, this is the most baffling thing, and maybe that's true, but if there's one that I would like to revisit the least amount, it's probably this one.
Yeah.
Book of Shadows, the best movie we've covered, yeah.
I don't know, Ringmaster, like, Jerry Springer is, like, such a non-presence in that movie as, like, the person that, like, should be holding that thing together, and, like, Reynolds, like we said, I think he's not very good in this and anything, but there's at least something there. There's like at least a little bit of effort, whereas Springer just seems like everything just slides off him in that movie. Not to make this, we've already talked to death about Ringmaster, but that's the end of my final thoughts.
We'll have an Artisan Awards section at the end of this series.
Oh, sure. we got to do a live like draft of like the top 7 Artisan movies.
Yes,
man.
You do.
Yes.
Yeah. The Limey and Ghost Dog, are those the 2 best so far?
Those are my
Blair
picks.
I don't have your
And Blair
list in
Witch.
front
Our
of me.
Xmas.
Yeah.
Blair Witch.
Oh, and Blair Witch. Okay.
Our Xmas.
High
It
Requiem.
really has been, Michael.
Soul
Like it really,
Survivors.
like I've looked at my letterbox and I've given more 1 stars over the past like few months than I have in like years.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And guess what? We're not done.
Yeah, Mike.
I have
know.
watched more 2000s horror or early 2000s horror during the pandemic than any time in my life, and wouldn't you know it, also the most 1 stars of my life.
It fills your heart with just so much joy.
Oh,
You're
I
just
love
like,
them.
look at them. They did things. But I am also a dumbass because I was like, yes, I would like to watch that movie. I want to watch The Messengers with Kristen Stewart.
Oh
Yeah.
God, I fucking saw that. in
I've seen that
theaters.
one. Yeah.
It's terrible.
That was something I saw. Darkness Falls.
I'm pretty
movie
sure
is
that
god-awful.
I'm almost positive The Messengers I saw like on a Saturday afternoon to avoid doing homework. Where I was like, my sister likes horror
Wow.
movies. This one's PG-13. Let me take her to
Homework,
this.
The Messengers. Homework,
Yeah,
The
yeah.
Messengers.
Oh my goodness.
Go watch the Mindhunters, though. I made Charlie watch Mindhunters. and
No,
he had
but
a very good time
Mindhunters is
with it.
good. Oh my God.
It's awesome.
I was showing people the Christian Slater death where they were like, I've never heard of this. I'm like, watch this. And they were like, oh, where's this streaming? Like,
That's in the first, like,
15 minutes.
dude. It's insane. All right, I'm sorry.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Almost Major. Please rate, review, and subscribe to us on iTunes. Please follow the pod on Twitter at Almost Major to keep up to date with what movies we will be covering in the future. Myself, I can be found on Twitter and Letterboxd at Kev Bonesy. Bryden can be found on Twitter at Bryden Doyle and on Letterboxd at J Doyle. Charlie can be found on Twitter and Letterboxd at CT Nash91. Once again, thank you for listening.